What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode with Swiper and Mile High Sports. I hope y'all having a fantastic day and a fantastic night as we get ready for the Denver Nuggets to play against the New Orleans Pelicans. And again, tonight, just heard from Mike Singer that Nikola Jokic is out tonight. So we'll see how that looks and we'll see how the team performs without him. But, we actually have a couple of things that we need to dive into even outside of this game. Now, the Denver Nuggets have played a sparing amount of games. They played against DC, the Washington Wizards. They then basically played against the Milwaukee Bucks, and they had another game versus the 76ers, and the 76ers did not have Joel Embiid. So we've gotten a chance to see the Nuggets play against some very good competition, some mid-level team missing a star. But the question that I've been asking myself is, are the Denver Nuggets ready for the playoffs? Now, if you remember, the Denver Nuggets, they had a streak where they went 2-5 over a 7-game period. They had the worst defense in the NBA. They were in situation versus the Chicago Bulls, where they lost by 21 points. The San Antonio Spurs, the Toronto Raptors, they gave up 49 points in the first quarter. There were plenty of games this year where the Nuggets didn't quite look like themselves. And all of this, as we talked about, it started after that Memphis game on the 3rd of March, in which they beat the Memphis Grizzlies by double digits for the second time at home. And ever since that point, they fell off and they looked like they were kind of struggling to figure out who they were and what they wanted to do. But then in the last 4 games, you've gotten a chance to really see the Denver Nuggets start to pick it up. Now, the Nuggets are in a unique situation. They currently have a 3-game lead over the Memphis Grizzlies for the first seed. And what that means is that with 6 games left to go, including tonight, you have opportunities to stave off the competition by winning some of these games, but also the Memphis Grizzlies basically have to beat every single one of their teams and every single one of the games that they would have to come up and win in order to catch the Denver Nuggets. So they're in a position where, like tonight, they can rest players like Jokic. And on the other side of this, you can have opportunities where you can get real good game plans in. Because tomorrow they play against the Phoenix Suns. Now, they may or may not play everybody versus the Suns. We'll have to see what that looks like off the night of a back-to-back. But the good news is the Denver Nuggets are in a situation where they can kind of write their own story and figure out what direction they want to go in. And so I've been watching the Nuggets the last couple of weeks, just like you have. The Nuggets played the Grizzlies on the March 3rd, Raptors, the Bulls, Spurs, Nets, and Raptors. And again, Bulls, Spurs, Nets, and Raptors were 4 straight losses. And then they beat the Pistons, and then they lost to the New York Knicks, had a really, really bad fourth quarter. Excuse me. Had a really bad fourth quarter. And then they played against the Brooklyn Nets, the Wizards, and then the Bucks and the 76ers. Now, here's the thing. I think the Nuggets are well positioned, and I am confident in the Nuggets. If you would have asked me, really, by the time you got to the Memphis game on March 3rd and they won that game, I would have said, yeah, they're locked in. They're good to go. They have everything that they need. The roster believes in itself. The players believe in themselves, and they're committed to doing the right things and playing winning basketball. But on the other side of this, we're in a situation where you still have so much of your season left. Will you decide to keep pressing your foot to the gas? And obviously they let off a little bit. But what I have liked is that basically since December 14th, the Nuggets have been a top 6 defense, and they've been a top 5 offense. Now, what that shows is that over the last 49 games, they've had a tremendous amount of consistency. And that consistency has helped them to beat truly elite competition, whether it be the Celtics, who right now, by the way, are absolutely mollywopping the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, it's not even close. It's like a 30-point game right now. Like, it's horrendous. And then here's the thing, too. One of the other things is that I think that we're in a situation where a lot of people had a lot of very hot takes about the Nuggets because it confirmed a lot of confirmation bias for them. And by that, I mean, is that you're in a situation where the Nuggets don't necessarily have to win, but because of the narrative still being said about the team and because Jokic, his narrative being said around the MVP, remember, as some of you all are already mentioning, and we already got people letting them know. Somebody said if Jokic doesn't play tomorrow, it's over for the MVP. No, because they still got the Warriors, the Kings, and a bunch of other stuff coming up. And the thing is, if he doesn't play, then he's still on pace for 72 games, and the other two players are on pace for 66 and 64 games played this year. He's going to be the only one over 70. So I actually don't think that at all. I think, if anything, this just goes to show you that if you take care of business throughout the rest of the year, which he had, you take care of your body, then you're able to maintenance down the stretch of the season when the games just simply don't mean as much because you're already locked in for the first seed and your numbers are what they are and your impact clearly says this is who you are. But now the Nuggets, as I was saying, because of the narrative that was building around the team, y'all got to realize a lot of folks are looking for reasons to not buy into the Denver Nuggets. I mean, I heard Chris Mannix on Colin Cowherd's show say today, The Herd on Fox Sports. He said that he thinks the Lakers will win the Western Conference. Now, he says that because they got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. You get D'Angelo Russell. You get Jared Vanderbilt. You get Malik Beasley. Then you got Troy Brown Jr. Then you got the rest of the roster and Rui Hachimura and, Dennis Schroeder and Mo Bamba, who's out right now with injury. They got a bunch of players. And so in his mind, they have a complete roster and a complete team. And they take them over places like Denver. I listened to Chris Broussard. I listened to Nick Wright. Same thing. They think they can win a round versus the Denver Nuggets, especially if in the first round. A lot of people just simply don't believe that the Nuggets have the team, the Nuggets have the players, and the Nuggets have the talent advantage to be able to secure some of these wins. But I think the thing that frustrates me a little bit about the conversation about the Nuggets is when you play as consistent as they have for as long as they have, and you hit the heights that they've had, you hit the valleys they've had, 4-game losing streak, the heights where they basically went 19-3 over a 22-game stretch. You have all that stuff happen, man. You start to find out who you are. You find out what you're great at. You find out the things that you're not so great at. And the Nuggets, more often than not, they were able to see these things. And so when you have an identity that's been built and solidified in resiliency, in a scheme, in an identity, and a determination to your name, it puts you in a different category. And the things that I get most frustrated about when I hear the conversation about the Nuggets in the playoffs is, even if you don't think they have a good defense, they still have a good enough defensive personnel to have the number one clutch defense in the NBA. They still have a good enough defensive personnel that if you say, hey, you got to play against the Suns or the Warriors in the series, they have bodies that you can at least throw at Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and you can at least throw at Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. But the thing about it is that you have to actually buy into what the team is doing, what their strengths are, and instead of just leaving the narrative behind. I mean, we saw Kurt Goldsberry put a whole article about Jokic and being a liability on defense. And my question is, for everybody, how in the world can you have a 49-game sample size where you're a top 6 defense in the NBA, but your center, which is the most important defensive position on the court, it's a complete liability? Like, that doesn't make any sense. How is that the Denver Nuggets defense is better when he's on the court than off? And this includes Zeke Naji. This includes DeAndre Jordan. This includes Thomas Bryant. How is that possible? So my whole thing is that if you have an outstanding generational offensive player who also is at least a slight positive on defense, and you surround that player with shooters and players who can move, players who can cut, players who can slash, and players who can defend, then you're putting yourself in an optimal situation. And I think the Denver Nuggets have put themselves in that situation. So as they have been going throughout the season, you have seen moments where this team has truly risen. Again, against the Milwaukee Bucks, they held them to 106 points. Now, they might not score that tonight versus the Boston Celtics. This is the second game of a back-to-back for them. And they had just beaten the Pacers yesterday, giving up crazy amount of points. But they're coming out today. Obviously, they're getting beat, but the Nuggets held them 106 points. And they, at the time, had won 24 of their last 27 games. Are we going to start questioning their defensive ceiling because they're getting exposed by 2 of the 3 best teams in the NBA? No. Why not? Because we're believing what our eyes are telling us, or because the numbers are also grading out the fact that, like, the Bucks have the best defense in the NBA. So what about this with the Denver Nuggets then? Are you believing what your eyes are telling you about the Denver Nuggets, that they are actually an elite team because the numbers say they are, and they've also beat quality competition all season? Or are you going off previous narratives about the way that Jokic looks in space or the way that these players look when they're on the court. Because the fact is that they played against the Memphis Grizzlies, bodied them. They played against the Milwaukee Bucks, bodied them. They played against the Celtics on January 1st, bodied them. And then on top of that, they've beaten the Clippers 4 times this year. And the Cavaliers, they came out of the All-Star break and they beat them too. And so, that's the funny thing about all this. They beat the Heat, they beat the Cavs right out the gate, and these are really good defensive teams. And yet they're still able to find mismatches and find advantages. And Jokic is able to beat Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo and Jared Allen and Jaren Jackson Jr. He's able to make good work of it. And the same thing with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. But it's funny is that the way the narrative continues to shift around the Nuggets and Jokic, it's not actually rooted, I think, in credible basketball takes. Now, again, Jokic not being a good rim protector. Jokic not always being great in drop coverage. Absolutely. There are things you have to do to build around him to make him a viable team defender, and they've done that. And I think they will do that. But on the other side of this, people really don't think that the Nuggets have an elite team. But I do, and I believe, based on what we've seen and what we know, that when they play against elite competition, they are more than prepared. It's going to come down to shot making and late game execution when you play the Nuggets. Meaning you're going to have to be able to outshoot them and outthink them to close the game. Now, some teams, the Warriors, Lakers with LeBron, they might be able to. But not often. Because you're going to have the player maybe with the best IQ in the game on the court. But, it is what it is. I think that the Denver Nuggets, the question that I wanted to ask myself to you all, and please let me know in the comment section. I think the Denver Nuggets are ready for the playoffs. And I think they've been gearing up now for really a month and a half, 2 months. But really in this last week, you've kind of seen them turn it on. The second half versus Detroit. The third quarter, second half versus the Wizards. Second half versus the Bucks. And then even obviously in the third quarter versus the 76ers with no Embiid and no Harden. I mean, they started going off. So we're in a situation now where it's just working out the kinks, making sure that you're ready, making sure that you're in a rhythm, that you're scheduled to do what you need to do when the time comes. But the good news is that I think that we're in a situation where the Nuggets are going to surprise a lot of people in the playoffs. And I mean surprise people as in surprise to people that don't believe in the roster and believe in the team. Because I do think that there's something to say that when you have season-long chemistry like you do, and you're playing teams that don't have that same identity, not pretty. It's not pretty because you got a team that's connected and doing everything it's supposed to do. And I think they're going to have some of these games where it's just the Nuggets are just rolling through their competition right now. Now, they're going to have games they drop, of course. You're not going to be perfect. But can you more often than not do what you need to do? That's the question. So the next thing, too, with all this is I wanted to cover a little bit of the MVP debate. So the straw poll from Tim Bontemps, the last one of the season, dropped today. And basically it's a neck-and-neck race. Nikola Jokic comes away with 42 first-place votes. Joel Embiid comes away with 40 first-place votes. But Joel Embiid edged Jokic out in the second-place votes. And therefore, the score right now in the Tim Bontemps poll of 100 writers is 790 to 788. It's a 2-point difference. And it's only a 2-point difference because he got one more second-place vote than Nikola Jokic. So here's the thing. Giannis is playing right now. Giannis is getting down 30-plus points again. What happens? If they keep losing or if they drop at all, what happens to those second-place votes, that first-place votes, the third-place votes? What do you do there? Now, some people did have Jokic in the third-place spot, and one of them willingly volunteered information as to who it was. It was Brian Windhorst. And I just think that it's incredulous to think that you can somehow make an MVP list this year and have Jokic at 3, given that he's averaging a triple-double with the most games played at the top of the West, with the efficiency and the net rating clearly leans Jokic, meaning the Nuggets are the best team in the NBA when he's on the court this season. That's better than Embiid, and that's better than Giannis. And so he's also been extremely consistent from start to finish. And the only reason people switched on him when he had 77 first-place votes was because of a stat padding narrative from Kendrick Perkins, because of a 4-game slide, and then Embiid had a 13-game run in March, basically, where he just went crazy. But outside of that, I mean, it's been Jokic since December. So, and it's funny because Chris Broussard and Nick Wright, they said today that if Jokic hadn't won last year, he'd been a runaway MVP favorite. Runaway. And multiple people have said that if Jokic did not win the MVP last year, he wasn't on track to win a third straight with his second, he'd be the runaway MVP. And that's so interesting to me that everybody knows that. And they're saying, well, the bar's been raised for a third straight. And I'm saying, well, the bar was a triple-double on all-time efficiency, averaging 25 points a game with 10 assists, and still having impressive rebounding numbers, and then playing over 70-plus games, and you're the first seed. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Because if we're having actual conversations about basketball, then that stuff has to start mattering in the discussion. Now, I still think Jokic is going to win it. I've said this. I don't think that with the way that Embiid has gone about his business off the court with the interviews, missing games. Now, even yesterday, he had 24 and 9 rebounds, I think, versus the Mavericks. And you could just tell that he just doesn't look the same. And now, with the fact that if he misses any more time, and Giannis obviously is getting his butt kicked on national television for the second time in the same week, if Giannis misses any games, like all this stuff is putting together, and Jokic finishes the first seed, it's going to be really hard to find a way to justify a player playing more games in a better seeding with all-time numbers, and then still giving it to Embiid in the third seed. But again, as they've said, a lot of people feel like this is Embiid's turn, and that's why when you hear the language of a pity MVP, that's why a lot of people they kind of taken back by that. It's because they're sitting here like, well, is this about the best player in the NBA and the most valuable player in the NBA, or just like, hey, these guys won? And I know what it is, because I heard Nick Wright say today that we've always given pity MVPs. Now look at Charles Barkley. We've always done that. You can't just keep winning them all. And my whole thing, well, that's dumb. So because Jordan got hosed, because LeBron got hosed, we want Jokic to get hosed, but we all know what it is. People don't want to see Jokic be a 3 straight MVP. So now you build up all these cases and these narratives. When in fact, that Jokic has the best and most solidified case because of the on-court play, when he's off, his level of help on the team, and then positioning. So I do think that this is going to come down to the wire. And this is going to come down to the wire because of the narrative around the award. So we're really going to have to see what ends up happening. But just as I was even listening and like reading and watching stuff today, Keyshawn Martin used to be a great NFL receiver. Basically came out and said that Giannis and Embiid are his guys. He just doesn't see the appeal with Jokic. The way he plays doesn't stand out to him. He said that he can't be a two-way. He got to be a two-way player for him. And then Jay Williams challenged him on James Harden and stuff. And he said, well, at least Harden made plays sometimes defensively, and the way he looked and carried himself on the court, he just hit him different. And again, this is all narrative stuff. This isn't in basketball, because you can't be a top 6 defense over a 50-game sample size and then have your best player and your biggest player be a complete liability. That's just not how basketball works. Is he perfect? No. But what I try to do on my channel and try to do on my Twitter and my social media is, how do you actually have basketball conversations with data and information? Because this is the best way to tell the story. And then we can build context into why the numbers look the way they do. And then we can talk about, are there narratives attached to a player that are true or untrue? And if they're not true, why do they exist? Oh, play style, the look and feel on the court, market. Okay, I get that. And if the narratives are true, why are those narratives true? Oh, that's right. Because bigs are traditionally not great at staying in front of people on pick and roll. So Jokic is not as some other big, but he's just as bad as every other big is basically in the NBA versus the elite competition. So whenever you're having basketball discussion, it's always important to be able to put the whole picture together. And so when I put the MVP picture together, as I've said, number 1 in the West, 25, 12, and 10, triple-double, 70% true shooting. He has the best floor rating season this year. He has the least amount of help relative to the other 3 players. And then on top of that, he played the most games. So you put all that together, that should be enough. And the narratives are we can't give him 3 straight without a finals MVP or a finals appearance. And my whole thing is, well, what if they make the finals this year? Which I think they have. And I think they will, because I said this before the season started. So we'll have to see how everything continues to go. We'll have to see what the narratives are and how they continue to exist with the Denver Nuggets. But it's going to be a crazy race down the rest of the year. And I think that Embiid, Giannis, and Jokic are all deserving MVPs and deserving candidates. But again, if we're openly saying that Jokic would be a runaway MVP if he hadn't won, then like I said, then people know who the best player has been. But now it's just about the narrative, y'all. But y'all, make sure y'all subscribe to Mile High Sports. Make sure y'all subscribe to the Swipe Cam platform. Make sure you follow everybody, Mile High Sports and myself on Twitter, on Instagram. Make sure you follow me on TikTok. If you want to get in contact with me, just DM me. I try to answer my DMs every single day. And I'm not always as present on YouTube, but I'm way more present on Twitter. So if you need to reach out, you want to say something, just let me know there. Y'all, Swipe Gang, y'all know what time it is. I will see y'all soon. We out. Much love, y'all.